Open Drive, download the file, upload the file, ask your question. You've been doing all four for a step that stopped being necessary this month. 5 fixes. 4 of them you can use in the next 10 minutes. The 5th one is where this whole thing breaks and nobody's talking about that part yet. By the end, you'll know which of the 4 fits the way you actually work. Here's what changed. OpenAI started rolling this out on August 13th. Your Drive files and folders now show up inside ChatGPT itself. You can pull a document into a chat by mentioning it, and on the web, a doc, a sheet, or a slides deck can sit open right next to the conversation while you work on it. One thing before we go further, because I hate finding this out at minute 9, this is a paid feature, Plus, Pro, Business, Enterprise. If you're on the free plan, this one isn't yours yet. Stay if you want to see whether it's worth $20, skip if you don't. Fix number 4 is the one that changed my week, and it isn't the obvious one. Say you run a small dental practice and your office manager keeps the patient intake policy in a doc. Someone asks a question about it. You open Drive, download the doc, drag it into ChatGPT, ask, get the answer. 2 days later, the policy gets edited and you do the whole thing again. The mistake is treating ChatGPT like a place you ship files to. That's why your downloads folder has 11 copies of the same policy and you're never sure which one the model read. The fix. Connect Drive once, in Settings, then call the file by name inside the chat. Your Drive folders show up in your library, sitting next to your conversations instead of in another tab. You ask about the live document, not a snapshot of it from Tuesday. When your office manager edits the policy at 4 in the afternoon, the next answer already knows. That's the whole shift, and it's smaller than it sounds. The file stopped being something you send. It became something the chat can reach. That sounds small, until you count how many decisions in your week run off a document somebody else keeps editing. Now picture the person who owns the monthly numbers at a 12-person agency. Revenue by client in a sheet. Every month, the same ritual. Export to CSV, upload, ask what changed, get an answer, go back to the sheet, lose the thread, upload again. The mistake here is the tab dance. You're the integration. You're the thing carrying data between 2 windows, and you're doing it with your hands. The fix. On the web, you can keep the sheet open beside the chat. The model reads the open file as context, so you're not describing your data, you're pointing at it. Ask why that client dropped in June. Ask which 3 accounts carry half the revenue. The numbers stay in front of you while the answer comes in, and you can check the answer against the cells without leaving the screen. No export, no second copy of the truth. And when your boss asks where the number came from, you're looking at it. And this is where it gets interesting, because reading was never the hard part. A client sends over a doc, scope of work, 4 pages, written by someone who loves long sentences. You need it shorter, in your voice, by end of day. The old mistake is the copy-paste loop. You copy a chunk into ChatGPT, get a better version, copy it back, lose the formatting, repeat 8 times. Somewhere in there, you paste over a paragraph you wanted to keep. The fix. The document sits open as an editing surface, and the changes get applied there, in the file, while you talk your way through them. Shorten this section. Make the second paragraph sound like a human wrote it. Kill the bullet list, make it prose. Honestly, I'm not sure this beats a real editor on a document that matters. But for a first pass on someone else's 4 pages, it's the difference between an hour and a coffee. There's one more, and it's the one I keep using without thinking about it. But before I get to fix number 4, which is the one that actually changed my week, take a second and subscribe. If you're the person who has to make AI work without a dev team, this is your channel. One workflow every Tuesday, with the parts that don't work included. Alright, fix number 4. This one's for anyone who works with files other people own. Your bookkeeper shares a spreadsheet, a partner school shares a deck, a client shares a brief. Wait, that's not quite right. It's not just clients. Half of it is your own team sharing things sideways. The mistake is that shared files used to be second-class citizens. You couldn't hand them over without saving your own copy first. So you made a copy, and now there are 2 versions, and one of them is already wrong. The fix. Files shared directly with you show up in your library too. You ask about the deck your partner sent, in place, without cloning it. The person who owns it keeps owning it. You just get to ask it questions. This is the one I use without thinking now. Somebody sends a 40-slide deck an hour before the call. I don't read it. I ask it 3 things. What does this want from me? What am I being asked to approve? Which number in here is going to come up on the call? 3 questions, about 90 seconds, and I walk into that call knowing more than the person who skimmed it on the train. Which brings me to the part everyone skips. Here's the fix that isn't a fix. It's knowing where this thing falls over, so you don't build a Tuesday routine on top of a hole. 4 limits as of today. Shared drives aren't in yet, so if your company keeps everything in a team drive, most of your files are still outside. 1 Google account at a time, which is rough if your work life and your personal life live in different accounts. No track changes, so on a document that needs an audit trail, you still edit like a grown-up. And it's web first. Desktop and mobile weren't confirmed at launch. What I do about it? Anything that has to be reviewed by another human gets copied into my own drive first, edited there, then moved back. Ugly, but it takes 20 seconds and nobody loses a paragraph. And for the team drive problem, 1 folder. 1 shared folder in my drive where the handful of files I actually ask about live. Not the whole company, just the 8 or 9 documents that carry my week. So walk it back to where we started. Open drive, download, upload, ask. 4 steps, every single time you had a question about your own work. Those 4 are now 0. The file was already in the room, you just couldn't talk to it. 4 of the 5 fixes are things you can set up before your next meeting. The 5th one is the honest part. I'd rather you hear the limits from me than find them at the worst possible moment with a client waiting. And notice what none of this needed. No automation tool, no script, no developer. You connected an account and changed where the question gets asked. If that's useful, subscribe. Next Tuesday, I'm testing whether this actually holds up on a full week of real work, or whether the copy-paste loop sneaks back in. Same format, real numbers, no sponsors. I put the setup on 1 page, the connector steps, the phrasing that actually pulls the right file, and the 4 limits so you don't discover them live. Links in the description, it's free. The comment is the price. Tell me which document you're tired of re-uploading. I read them, and the most common one becomes a video.